Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and we have got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. Saturday was a bit of a snoozer day, but Sunday has given us a lot of interesting games to talk about between the Purdue and Wisconsin game, the Illinois and Nebraska game that just ended. We're going to have a lot of discussion there. We're going to talk about Michigan State and Maryland. We're also going to talk about Northwestern in Minnesota and IU losing by 14, 2 touchdowns for you football fans out there to Penn State at home. I'm sure our guys will have a lot to talk about it. We have Kent, Casual Big Ten, back with us again on Sunday night. You can catch Kent over on the YouTube channel, podcast, social media, all that good stuff. And then special guest Ryan Hammer tonight is going to be joining us. Ryan is all over social media. Love following his content. Ryan, do you have a podcast or anything like that?
No, I see everyone always asks me. Maybe I should have something to reference to, but no, just my profiles right now.
Very good. Yeah. So, like I said, all over social media, Ryan does a great work and really appreciate his content. So, appreciate that. If you are listening on podcast, please do give us a subscribe and a follow over there. If you could give us a rating and review, we appreciate that. If you're listening on YouTube, please do give us a like, comment below to let us know what you think of what we're discussing. And also get in the chat. Let us know if you have thoughts. We'd like to highlight what you guys are talking about, what you guys think, as well as what we're talking about. But without further ado, let's just get right into it, guys. All right, we have our very first game here. Purdue goes into Wisconsin and wins this one 75-69. It was a big game. Many were highly anticipating it, so much so we previewed it like 5 days before the game, even before the Nebraska game, which, Wisconsin fell to. So won't bring that back up, Wisconsin. That's okay. We know you're not too happy about that one. But I'll let our guest Ryan have the floor first. Ryan, what were your thoughts on the Purdue win over Wisconsin?
Yeah, it kind of went how I anticipated it to go. It's funny, like all I think about all day after the game was on Twitter. Like Purdue fans were more mad than anyone else about the foul calls and the refs and stuff like that. I'm like, y'all still got the calls, y'all still won the game. I kind of understand a little bit of it, but I hate that is always a takeaway from the Purdue games, but that's just kind of the world we're living in at this point. But it was good. Like, the game was going to be one of those classic Big Ten dogfights with more quality than we see in maybe like the Maryland Michigan State game, which we'll get to obviously. But it was exactly how I anticipated it to go. It was close the entire time. Wisconsin stayed true to it. I thought AJ Storr would give me a little more in the second half, of course, but kind of is what it is. And I did not expect the balance that Purdue gave. Obviously, we don't really see that super often, at least. So.
Yeah, it was definitely a good game by Purdue, and I think one of Purdue's better defensive efforts of the season, especially for knowing Wisconsin. You might look at 69 points and think, oh, is that a good defensive effort? Well, against Wisconsin, who can score 80, sometimes high 70 points up there, yeah, that's a pretty good defensive performance from them. Kent, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, about the officials, first off, I was thinking about going back and watching this game and doing a full breakdown on Twitter of every single call that I thought was a call and what wasn't a call. None of your guests have ever done that before, right, JR?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. I was just making sure. I'm going to do that tonight, so you guys be on the lookout for that on my channel.
Okay.
No, in all seriousness, no, we talked about this last week when I was on Wednesday that I thought if Wisconsin split with Purdue that they still had a chance to win the regular season championship. And now that they've lost this one, I'm fully off that because I wasn't anticipating them losing to Nebraska as well. So with that back to back, I think it's kind of out of reach for them with them still having to finish the season at Purdue still. So I think that's kind of a lost hope for them now after this game. This was a huge game for that. So to me, I think the Big Ten championship regular season is over. And that took place today when Purdue won. Now, had Wisconsin won this game, there was still a shot for that to be kind of a battle, but that's all over now. But yeah, just like a really rough week for them. Like I said, overtime loss to Nebraska and then this game today. But as far as Purdue, man, I just can't say enough good things about Lance Jones. I love him. I think he just does so much for their team. I've talked about him a lot before, but not only his scoring, but he can rebound. He can get those loose balls for you, and he's been pretty good defensively as well. So loving what Lance Jones is doing, and then it's just the same old guys every game for them. It's Zach Edey and then Braden Smith, which I know people think I don't like Braden Smith. I do. We played a game a few weeks back where we had to switch somebody from Michigan to Purdue's team, and I said that I'd switch Doug and Braden, and people got pretty upset with me. But, I like Braden Smith. think he's a good basketball player. But yeah, good game for this was huge for Purdue. Like I said, I think it's the Big Ten championship today, and I think it's over now. I am still excited about the rematch or rematches because I still think there's a good chance that not only are they going to finish the season playing against each other, but they might play in the Big Ten championship too, which would be amazing. It'd be great to see this game 3 times this year. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I can already hear the Illinois fans yelling at you saying that Purdue has it over with and that it's done because Purdue still travels to Illinois, right? I think they go.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think they still go there. But yeah, no. I agree. I think Purdue has this locked up unless they have some kind of downward spiral or something like that, where Zach Edey just starts getting in foul trouble in games and teams are able to capitalize on that. But even that, I don't think is a guarantee that a team is going to be able to capitalize on that. I was surprised from the Wisconsin fan base reaction that I was seeing on Twitter. I kind of felt like Ryan did, where I was looking and I was like, man, AJ Store's not doing enough in the second half here. He's not that scorer. He's not that playmaker that you really have seen AJ Store to be. Now, I think, like I said, Purdue was playing good defense on him and they had some good answers in the second half. But a lot of the Wisconsin fans were coming at my guy Chucky. All right. They were coming for Chucky and saying he wasn't doing enough. He wasn't shooting enough or whatever. I don't know. It was kind of mixed criticism all around. Ryan, did you have any more thoughts on AJ or thoughts on Chucky at all?
Yeah, I mean AJ, like he's a score first kind of player. Like he's the most talented player, I guess, on the floor, really on both teams, honestly, and that's majority of Big Ten games, maybe every game. So he's gonna have those nights. It's like any basketball player that you've seen as a wing scorer, where they're gonna shoot 20% from the field every now and then, but you got to keep shooting. You got to try to work through it, especially when you're losing. So it kind of just is what it is. It was on the wrong night. They played against a good defensive team. Chucky's my guy too. I was out there. I can't even do math. I was out there like a week and a half ago with Chucky doing some stuff. Super great dude. I understand why people want more from him because he is their leader on and off the floor. He's their point. He has the ball in his hands all the time. But his role isn't to score 20 points a game or try to score 20. I know that's frustrating to hear maybe, but I didn't think he played awful. He does so many little things on the floor that keeps them in games like this in terms of steals and assists and playmaking and stuff like that, and just gritty defending against Braden Smith on like the pick and roll and getting around Zach Edey, even though he's half the size of him, to try to defend Braden when he gets into that lane. But I get it. I kind of get it. You want more, but it's not his role, and he's not going to give you 25 every single night. And that's why I think a guy like AJ Store is there. But I thought Chucky was still pretty good for the most part. Like I don't think he turned the ball over at all in the entire game, and he still had a few assists and did what he was supposed to do. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Tyler Wall and AJ Store, and Max Klesmith, those are really those guys that you need to lean on for the scoring. To me, Chucky Hepburn brings that good, strong defense. He's kind of annoying in the passing lanes. And what was it? Nebraska just 2 nights ago, he had like 2 steals in a row, back to back in possessions, and was able to go down and get buckets that way. So I don't know. I don't get the Chucky hate personally after this game. I get you want a little bit more from him. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Kent, we saw Zach Edey struggle a little bit early in this one. He was not doing kind of his normal stuff. In fact, he wasn't even the leading scorer in this one. Lance Jones was the leading scorer at all. So I'm not going to ask if you have any concerns about Zach Edey, but I did feel like Wisconsin hit in some areas here that was able to not take down Zach Edey, but minimize him more than I have seen other teams do so, especially with him on the defensive end with what Wisconsin was doing. Kent, do you have any concerns going forward about what Wisconsin was able to do to Zach Edey, and if other teams are going to be able to figure that out too?
I don't have concerns about it, and if you're a Purdue fan, I don't think you should be concerned either because it's happened a few times this year. I remember I came on the night after the time that they played Michigan. And I thought Michigan did one of the best jobs actually guarding Zach, but it doesn't matter because there's so many other guys that can score for that team that even if he gets shut down like completely, Purdue's just got too many dudes that can, pick up where he's leaving some slack, I guess, if you would call it. But he is still very difficult to guard. He's still a guy that, when coaches are prepping for this game, they have to put in a ton of scout work on what they're going to do and game plan around him no matter what. And even if you do game plan around him and you can shut him down, like I said, there's just too many other guys. So I'm not concerned for the team in general. I guess if you're concerned about his points per game or something like that, that might be there might be some tape out there now that has shown that there's ways to neutralize him. But I'm not concerned for Purdue. I was going to go back to the Chucky thing too. For Wisconsin fans, I'm confused, like why you are mad now about this. Like he's played like the same his whole career. Like nothing's really changed. There's no reason to be like up in arms after this game. Like how come he didn't score more? Like he did exactly what he's always done for them, and it's worked out pretty good for Wisconsin so far. So I don't know why he'd be mad about it now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was less efficient in this one. He was 1 for 6 and 0 for 1 from 3-point. But then again, he was also 4 for 4 from the free throw line. So, but I think he also did what you kind of expect a guy to do when he's shooting and he's not hitting shots. Kind of is what it is. And he moved on from there. And he still had 2 steals in this one. 3 fouls, which isn't awful or anything. So, I don't know. What fans are thinking so much about it, because I'm kind of with you, Kent, where it's kind of what he's done all season. Sure, he's a little bit less efficient, but it is what it is. Last question on this game, Ryan, before we move on from the next one. Wisconsin, 2 losses in a row, 1 at Nebraska, one of the hardest places to play in the Big Ten this year, and 1 at home to Purdue. Are you having any concerns about Wisconsin going forward here?
No more than like they played the way they're supposed to play, and that's kind of just like the Big Ten scheduling. It just kind of is what it is, and like you want to win that game at Nebraska, and of course you want to win every game at home because they're a top 10 team in the country. It hurts probably in the short term, but give it a week when they win another game or 2 next week and stuff like that, and they'll be fine and they'll completely forget about this. It doesn't really set them back, especially with a lot of other top 10 and 15 teams losing this week, where they won't dip in rankings too much if people really care about that much. Which I know fans definitely care about that for whatever reason. If 1-2 spots difference, we should be 12 instead of 13 or whatever. But it's not much a worry. There's no major red flags in these 2 losses, right? Like they played for the most part into the game situation and what they had to, and it kind of just didn't fall their way. So they should be fine. I wouldn't be worried too much.
Yeah, what do you think, Kent?
Yeah, I'm right with him. I think that they've shown enough this year that they're a strong team, and I'm not concerned about either one of these losses. Like you said, Nebraska's a tough place to play in. By the way, they were up by a lot during that game, so they were playing pretty well. Most of that game. I will say, I know we're not going back to that game. That was the first time, as far as concerns, that Nebraska game was the first time I saw them look shook for a minute. Like they looked like they were not doing what they normally do, and they looked kind of out of sorts. But besides that, I've never seen that happen before. If they can shake that off, I think they'll be fine. They're fine.
Yeah, Jeff letting us know here, KenPom has Illinois losing 3 more and Wisconsin losing only 1 more. That's what I was going to do next real fast before we move on, is kind of go through the schedule. I mean, at Michigan next, that's a win, right? At Rutgers.
This is Wisconsin's schedule or Purdue?
Wisconsin's.
Okay.
At Michigan, at Rutgers. I say those are both wins.
Whoa. I'm from Jersey out here. We defend the rack with our heart, okay? I'm not a Rutgers fan, but it's a tough place to play. I'll give them that. Come on.
We have been called a Rutgers podcast in football, so I feel like I have to bring that over a little bit in basketball. I'm all for Rutgers. I don't really think this is their year, just because unfortunately the stuff going on with losing players. But man, if I was a Rutgers fan, I'd be so hyped to be getting the 2 guys coming in. What was it? Harper and
Dylan and Ace, yeah.
Yeah, Dylan, yeah. Bringing them in. So I mean, no disrespect, Rutgers fans.
That's fine.
I'm very much for you next year, but Ohio State lost. Everybody's going to beat Ohio State for the rest of the year. So those are my thoughts on Ohio State. At Iowa, win, right? I mean, we're going to call that a win. Maryland, Ryan, what do you think? Home against Maryland?
Home against Maryland, they'll win that game, yeah.
Yeah. At Indiana, I don't think Indiana's all that good. We'll talk about them later. Home against Illinois, home against Rutgers, and then at Purdue. I feel like KenPom probably has that 1 loss against Purdue, and that's probably it. Don't you guys think?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably it's the Big Ten though. Also, I think KenPom also has everybody within the top 100, even Michigan, Rutgers, or maybe really close, like just outside top 100. So the bottom of the league is so tough. Where we see it every year. The Big Ten, they just beat down on each other, and yeah, it's good for your quad 1 games, for your strength of schedule to get extra teams in the tournament, but it just kind of demoralizes you, and you play styles that you aren't going to be playing every single game in March, because teams don't play like this, and that's why the Big Ten has struggled so much in March in the last few years. So like they might lose 2 or 3 games the rest of the way, and it's still going to be a very, very good end of the season for them because that's just the nature of the Big Ten. Like if they lost at Rutgers, Illinois, and Purdue and won every other game, like they're fine. They're going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. I could see one more loss in there or something. Illinois will probably give them a good game. But yeah, you're right. The Big Ten is tough, and you can never count a full win or fully count it on a win in these games. So, all right, good stuff there. Let's move on to the next one. Speaking of Nebraska, Illinois wins in overtime over Nebraska. I was really upset, guys. We would have had 5 days of overtimes in a row if Ohio State wouldn't have, double dribbled in that one. But it's fine.
Why'd they do that?
Because they're dumb.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
I don't know. There's a reason why I started leaving Ohio State off of the list of games we talk about because it just turns into me crapping on them the whole time because I don't really like my team this year, but it is what it is. So let's move on to, like I said, Nebraska and Illinois. Illinois comes through clutch here in the end. They had a 10-point lead late, and then Nebraska made the comeback, and there was that questionable foul call toward the end of regulation that who was it? Was it Domask that got the foul called on him, and he was able to hit the free throw, missed the second one. So they went to overtime. Kent, we'll get your thoughts on this game first. What'd you think?
Yeah, I joked about it on Twitter this morning when I was putting out the what games are happening today tweet. That obviously with the other game that was taking place today, I said that this could be the game of the year, Illinois and Nebraska. And you know what? It actually turned into a very entertaining game. I love this game. That was fun to watch. Just throwing punches back and forth. There was a couple of moments like at the end, though. You talked about that foul already, but there was a spot. I think there was about 17 seconds left. I can't remember exactly because it just happened. But Juwan Gary had a chance to get an and one, and they were down 2 at the time, and it just rolled. It barely missed. It hit the heel of the rim and then came out. But if he hits that and one, they could have won that in regulation. And then there was just some weird turnovers by Illinois with 30 seconds left. But overtime was awesome. Like I said, they were just going back and forth. And then the very end of overtime, Nebraska still had a chance to tie it one more time. They had the ball, and Tominaga threw it to Mast. And it was going to be a deep 3, but he tried to – I thought – I'm not going to be too critical of Mast because he's been so good this year, and he was even good in this game. But I thought he should have pulled that right when he got it because he had Shannon Jr. closing out on him, and he ended up stealing the ball right out of his hands, and that was the game. So I would have liked to see him at least get that shot up, a chance to tie it one more time in overtime. But, this is a great game, and it's nice because if you're a Nebraska fan at least, even though you lost this game, it's nice to see them show up on the road because they haven't done that yet, hardly at all this year. So you see a Nebraska team maybe turning the corner. Maybe they can pick up a few road wins down the stretch here. If you talk to some of their fans or guys that are watching a lot of their games, they need a road win to be in the NCAA tournament. I don't know if that's 100% true because I'm not a bracketologist, but yeah, I think that they can get some. Now that I've seen this, I'm a little bit more convinced that they can actually go on the road and win one. But this is a good win for Illinois too, though. You got to give them credit. Expected to win this game, expected to win it by a little bit more, but Nebraska came in fighting and they got the win at the end of the day, so that's what they needed.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like Illinois was going to win by a little bit more. Like I said, they were up by 10, getting to near the end of the game, and Nebraska was able to make a comeback. And I agree. If I'm a Nebraska fan, I'd love to see that, on the road and making a comeback like that late in the game and being resilient to do that. I love to see that. Hate the result of the game, obviously, but it would give me hope for playing some road games in the future. Ryan, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, for Nebraska, you hit it. That's a tough game. You don't expect to win. You got to take more positive than negative away from that. I got to imagine at least. The road win thing is true. It's not like the committee is going to look at it and be like, they have 0 road wins. They can't be in the tournament. That's it's not black and white, but teams like Rutgers, I think it was last year, maybe it was 2 years ago when they missed a tournament. I think it was last year. They just missed a tournament. They were so good at home and so bad on the road. And it basically ruins their strength of record. It ruins everything. It ruins their KenPom rating. So it basically determines their metric ranks. And Nebraska in the tournament as of right now, they're like quote unquote on the bubble, but they're on the right side of the bubble. They will have to win a couple of big games like that. This was not a game that you needed to win by any means. I think they did their job for the most part. Like, it kind of sucks the way it fell out. The shot making was incredible too. Like, we know they can shoot. They shot, I don't know what they shot from three. I have it up here somewhere. They shot 43% from three. We've seen them do that time and time again. Like Keisei Tominaga and Rank Mas, they can let that thing fly. And it felt like they were just like there for the moment. And like, when you think about the NCAA tournament, those games were like, say they're like an 8 or 9 seed, which is like very, very attainable and very likely for them. When they play a 1 seed in the second round, like, they can get into the heat of momentum and in those moments and hit those big shots. And like, they might not win those games, I'm not sure, but those are the little things, like the non-metric and non-statistical things that like you want to see. And also having Juwan Gary and their whole entire team healthy, what it feels like now, they're able to defend a little more athletically, which is good, because I had that worry against a team like Illinois, was bigger and like a bunch of athletes, and they're like NBA talented guys like Terrence Shannon. But they played really well against that, and it came out to Illinois. Illinois has more talent. Like, maybe it's only by a little bit, maybe it's a lot, but Illinois has those athletes and that talent, and that shot making was on their end also, because like Terrence Shannon hit a couple of big ones at the end of regulation. Like, that's just kind of is what it is. Illinois is a good team, so.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna get shot making like this from Keisei Tominaga, like, you can beat any team out there for real. I mean, 14 for 21 and then 5 from 7 from 3-point land, like, that's just amazing. And if I told you he did that on the road, like, nobody would believe me. You would think, oh, he did that at home. No, he's actually struggled the past few games that they've been at home, and this is, I think, his first 30-point game of the season this year. So he could be coming into his own a little bit more and kind of brushing off some of those shooting woes that he's had lately. And if he starts playing like this more consistently, then Nebraska is going to be very, very formidable. And I think some fans would look at this and say, oh, we only beat Nebraska by 3 on the road. If maybe they didn't watch the game, and some of the thoughts that Illinois fans have had lately of, we're struggling with Terrence Shannon Jr. coming back, and we're not quite looking like ourselves. I felt like this is the best Illinois has looked in a couple of weeks, probably ever since Terrence Shannon Jr. came back. And I think it's be very encouraging that you saw your team falter a little bit, lose some of their lead, and then come back, win the game, even against really good shooting. Ryan, I just overall your thoughts on Illinois struggling with Terrence Shannon Jr. coming back, and did they look better in this one to you?
Yeah, I'd agree with that for the most part. I'm not worried, because like, it's not like he's brand new to the program and team, which I think helps a lot, where he's been there and a lot of the guys have been there for the most part. So I'm not really worried at all. And I mean, worried in that sense, at least. There are other things, like, I don't know how Illinois fans exactly feel about their ceiling this year, and can they win a Big Ten title in the tournament? Can they go to a Final Four and compete for national title? Like, I don't know if I see that upside. But they're a top 10, they're 14 right now. They're a top 15 team in the country. They basically have been all season long. So you would think that if you're top 15 all year, you're contending for a national title. I just don't know if they have the makeup to do that outside of the on paper talent, which even then, I don't know if it's there. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Kent, I'm curious your thoughts on the ceiling of Illinois this season with Terrence Shannon Jr. playing better and stuff. We looking at Elite Eight? We looking at Final Four? Or is that asking too much? Maybe Sweet 16 is probably the ceiling. What do you think, Kent?
I think they could go to the Final Four. I do. I think they're that good, and it's not just because of their scoring and the guys that they have that can put the ball in the rim. I think it's their defense. Coleman Hawkins is, I think, going to win Defensive Player of the Year. That's what I've been reading and hearing people talk about for the Big Ten. So they have him down low. And then if you didn't see the game tonight, I thought that Terrence Shannon Jr. was a menace defensively. Like, I talked about the steal he got at the end of overtime, but there were other plays like earlier on towards the end of regulation, just throughout the game in general, that, where he's checking Tominaga and he's just right in his grill the whole time. And he's so athletic that he can be that big body on a guard in the tournament that, might be getting hot. And then they run into Illinois and they have Terrence Shannon guarding him. Yeah, that's going to be tough, man. So I think that they can make a deep run. I think they can make it to a Final Four. And, once you get there, obviously anything can happen at that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I listen to Sleepers Media, and Greg Waddell is all about them going to Final Four and all that stuff, which I don't know. If Illinois plays their best game every single time in the tournament, I could definitely see them getting to the Final Four. But if they do struggle and if they do have some of these mishaps with what's been going on, or if they do run into a team where they can't switch like they want to and things like that, I could see them faltering and maybe going down. But the fact is, Illinois is going to be a matchup problem for many of the teams that they face. A lot of these teams are not going to be able to do well with the size that Illinois brings out there. My one concern is if they run into somebody who is able to play them similar to Zach Edey played to Ty Rodgers, where he just literally did not even come close to Ty Rodgers when he was on the three-point line. I mean, he just stayed down low and was able to protect the paint, and Ty Rodgers really wasn't able to be much of an issue. Now, you do have Luke Goody and Justin Harmon who can come in and help out in those areas, but at some point, I do think it's going to come back to bite Illinois, the fact that they don't have a true point guard on this team, and we know how important guard play is, especially in the NCAA tournament. Kent, am I crazy to think that Illinois could be, in danger of a possible first or second round exit?
I mean, I think you are, but,
Okay.
We're still going to be friends after this.
That's fine. Illinois fans won't be friends with me, but that's fine.
I think that their floor is the Sweet 16. To me, that that's for me. I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but March Madness is so crazy. You see like Purdue lost last year to someone. What was it, Farley Dickinson last year, and that shouldn't have happened. That, and things like that happen every year. So I obviously it's possible, but there shouldn't be a close game for them, in my opinion, until the Sweet 16. That's just how I see it. Like their seed line is going to be way too high, and they're not. They got to get to the second weekend. They just have to this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's the likely scenario, but if they run into the wrong team, it could possibly happen. Ryan, am I crazy to think that it's a possibility that Illinois' lack of true point guard on their team could end up them leaving in the first or second round of the NCAA tournament?
No, via both you guys said, it's like on paper, I don't think that's crazy at all. And also it's the tournament. So like Ken said, like anything can happen kind of thing. They're going to probably end up maybe around the 3, but probably on like a 4 seed line. And that's a big difference where if you're on that 4-5, one, you have to play a really, really good mid-major in the first round. So like if they get like a McNeese State who's been cooking in there, they can play physical and slow the game down and give them a lot of issues and stifle their offense a little bit. I think it's a bad matchup. Just like a first team came to my head. But then also, even if you win that first game, you're likely going to have to play the other 4 or 5 that maybe that's Kentucky, or maybe that's someone that no one wants to play because that's where Kentucky is at. And there's a lot of other big schools like Illinois and these teams that don't want to play each other so early, but 2 of them are likely going to have to, unless they get bounced first round. And then you got to play a 1 seed after that. So the path of where their likely seed is going to be real, real tough.
And we do want to check in on Nebraska with this too, because I've heard conflicting stuff. And we talked a little bit about them being on the right side of the bubble. Ryan, do you see Nebraska as a tournament team here in March?
Yeah, I have them in right now. I was literally just doing this a couple hours ago before their loss, pushing 9 seed line, probably around like a 10. I mean, this is like a weird thing, but you'd always rather be a 10 than an 8 or 9, because the 8 or 9, you got to play a team that's just as good as you, and then you got to play a 1 seed after that, and you might get Houston or Purdue that you just don't want to play. You just don't want to play against those teams. But I think Nebraska will be in the tournament. I think they're a tournament team now. Obviously, they're nowhere near locked in. They have a lot of work to do to keep that spot. But they're on the right side right now. A lot of the bubble teams are like the Pac-12 teams, like Colorado and Oregon and Wazoo, that play like really weak schedules in comparison to the other power conferences. So they have a big advantage if they can get some big wins the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. Kent, we'll finish it with you here. Nebraska tournament team, yes or no?
Yes. I tweeted out that they were a tournament team after they beat Wisconsin the other day, but I was just pulling up their schedule because we were talking about how bad they need to win a road game. They still have Michigan on the road. That's for sure a win. And Ohio State and Indiana. I don't know if we already talked. I don't think we already discussed that, but I think that they could win all 3 of those road games. And then, tack on a couple more home games, and they're going to be they're going to, like I said, I don't do bracketology. I don't even dabble in it. So in my casual mind, if you get to 20 wins, you're in the tournament. I don't know if that's normal or not.
In the Big Ten, I think that's fair. In their situation, I think that sounds fair.
Yeah. So I feel like they will get to 20, and then I think that they could win 1 or 2 in the Big Ten tournament, and then they're for sure going to be in. But like
Yeah,
I said, I have no idea like what line they'll be on or anything like that. I would like to see them in. Does that count for anything? I want them to be in. If the
yes,
committee's listening, I would like to see the Nebraska Cornhuskers in the NCAA tournament. If you guys can make that happen, I'd appreciate it.
we'll
I feel like
send
that
this to 'em
helps,
right
right?
away. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, really, if you look at their schedule, since I brought it up right after you did, their next game is at Northwestern. And then after that, I mean, they don't really have any more top tier teams in the Big Ten to play. They have Michigan, Penn State, Indiana, Minnesota, Ohio State, and Rutgers.
It's
Which,
good and
again,
bad, I
like,
feel like.
yeah, like, again, this is the Big Ten. It's hard to win, but
Yeah.
like, if you ask me, would you rather be finishing your year with 2 games against Michigan and away games at Ohio State and Indiana,
Right.
or 2 games against Purdue and away games against Northwestern? Like, I'd rather choose this.
You said they're at
So
Northwestern?
next week, yes.
Which day is
That's
that?
it.
This coming
Wednesday.
week?
Yeah,
That's
Wednesday.
huge. They're in the same spot right now. They both need to win. Oh, winning at getting your away win at Northwestern, but like
Yeah.
they'll basically lock in. There you go.
I need to get out to Northwestern sometime soon. Every single time I watch them at home this season, I'm just thinking to myself, I gotta get there. I gotta get there and see a game because
It looks
they're
fun,
just so
yeah.
electric. It does.
Wait,
look
what's
so
that
much
other
fun.
team in Chicago? We got to go. We'll do a doubleheader.
Chicago State?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no. There was that. Remember that college we found? It was like I can't even remember the name of it. It was like
Oh, I don't
University
know.
College or something.
University.
Is
I
it
can't
East
remember
West?
something.
Is that a real?
East
I
West,
don't
yeah,
know.
that's
What,
what it is.
Yes.
I didn't know it's
East
Chicago.
West.
I just know it's East West, so it's probably in the middle. There you go.
Yeah. That's it. We got to go to an East-West game and then a Northwestern game, just like
we go.
all the directional
Wow.
school games. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I need to go to an Indiana State game. I was just talking to my wife about buying tickets and going to that one. I need to see Avila
Yeah.
live before he moves on. So, all right. Before we move on to the next game, we want to remind you about CBB Analytics. CBB Analytics gives me a free pro tier to tell you every single basketball episode about them. Go check them out. They also have free stuff that's very good as well. So even if you don't want to pay for it, go check them out. And if like you really, really like it, like I did, you can look at it and say, we'd like to spend money on this because it is really, really good content. They come from the NBA, some of the analytics over there, and then they've brought that now to college basketball. Like I said, it's really good content, not just for players, but also for teams and overall college basketball. Really, really fun. Enjoy seeing that stuff. So go check them out. CBB Analytics. Go check them out. All right. Our next one. Michigan State and Maryland. Ryan, you got your Terps hoodie on, so we'll let you start with this one. Michigan State takes them. It was at the Breslin Center, so I don't think this is a bad loss for Maryland. Obviously, one you'd want to get. I love Jameer Young. I'll start off by saying that. I know some people think I hate him. I don't hate Jameer Young. I think Jameer Young is fantastic. I think Jameer Young is like the best offensive weapon, possibly the only offensive weapon that this Maryland team has. Ryan, what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever met anyone that doesn't like Jameer Young. That's my glorious king, as I like to call him. He's the best, and like everyone just wants him to get some assistance, maybe just anything ever. Like I think what did you have 31? He had like just another day of him scoring 30. I think Juju had like 10 or 12, and then no one else scored above double digits. It's just the shooting is bad, the offense is bad. We have no identity, and it's bad. It's bad. Like we should be a good team, returning a lot of experience in Willard year 2, who is not a young or inexperienced coach by any means in the broad scheme of things. It's pretty frustrating. It's exactly how I expected it to go because Michigan State likes to play this kind of game. Also, they have been underwhelming all year, and they still looked underwhelming in this game, even though they're up. We got to win. We're moving on to the next one. Got the result. That's important, sure, but their shooting was bad. Their offense has been the same thing all year. I was at the Wisconsin-Michigan State game. That's the game I went to last Friday night, 2 Fridays ago, and their offense is so stagnant at times, the majority of the time, with no movement, no motion, no nothing. And they have guys unwilling to shoot half the time. Like it's pretty bad. And it really, really limits their ceiling and what they can do in everything in regular season and postseason. 2 underwhelming teams in the Big Ten, one less underwhelming than the others. I think it's a pretty good determination of it.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought Julian Reese was going to come into this one. He only had 2 points, played only 14 minutes because he got into some foul trouble there early on. So I really thought Julian Reese was going to take Matty Sissoko and Carson Cooper and Kohler and Booker, whoever they threw down there in the front court. I think he just took him to town. But at the end of the day, only 2 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Like I said, 14 minutes. So I think that was the part of it that really surprised me. I mean, not surprised me. Obviously, when he gets in foul trouble, they're going to take him out. But I thought he was going to be a key piece to the win here for Maryland if they were going to get the win. But I just don't think he ever really got the opportunity. Those early fouls and had to spend time on the bench. And really, when you have those fouls, you never really get into a rhythm. Kent, I know you're like our expert here for Michigan State and Steven Izzo and all that stuff. So we're just going to give the floor to you, and whatever you have for us, go for it.
Well, I was going to start with the foul stuff about Julian. No excuses, Julian. My daughter played last night, and she had 2 fouls in the first minute of the game, and she still scored out. They actually score out in her league. If you score 16, you're not allowed to score anymore. So she was able to right the ship, and, he should be able to as well. If she can do it, so can Julian. You know what I mean? No, but Malik Hall, man, I like Malik Hall a lot. I thought that, like, the beginning of the year, they just needed so much more from him, and he's kind of taking it. Just looks like he's playing a little bit more free, like there's less pressure on him. So seeing him do well down the stretch was a big part of this game. Jameer said a few weeks back, "Stay with us." That's what he said. He tweeted that out, "Stay with us," and that has stuck with me ever since he said that. And I'm like, I'm going to do this because I love watching him play basketball so much. I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to stay with you guys. But I have to say, Jameer, the next 3 games, you might lose me, man. I might not be able to stay with us. It's Rutgers, at Ohio State, and Iowa. I feel like Maryland has to win all 3 of these games for me to be staying with him. I think that they have to win all 3. So big part of their schedule coming up, all 3 winnable games for them. I'm really interested. I like Maryland a lot. I don't have a Maryland hoodie on right now, but I love watching them play, and I would just I want to cheer for them, but they're so easy to cheer for one game and then really frustrating the next game. And this is just one of those frustrating games. But for Michigan State, like, I think that despite, the offense being stagnant or whatnot, I think that they are starting to turn it's kind of what we've always expected, JR. We've been talking about this for a while now. Like, they started out so bad, but like they always figure it out. And it seems like now they're starting to figure out how to win, at least, despite how ugly it might be in a few of these games.
Yeah, no, for sure. Jameer has figured it out. I don't know if everybody else has, but Jameer has.
I'll talk about Michigan State.
Sure. Oh, Michigan State. Okay. Yeah. That was a question I was gonna have later, but Jeff brought up something I was gonna bring up to Ryan, so we'll just bring it up now. Harris Smith scoreless was big also. Yeah. Ryan, I don't have any words for Deshaun Harris Smith anymore. He was going to be such a big piece to this offense. I felt not like a huge piece, I guess, but he was going to be a piece to this offense that was going to help them thrive, take some of the pressure off of Jameer Young, so he didn't feel like he has to do everything. And then in this game, Jameer Young has 31 and he has 0. What's the deal with Deshaun Harris Smith? What's going on? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, his shot was never a strength. Like, even watching him and scouting him out of high school, like, I was like excited for him to come because he brings so many physical tools and athletic tools defensively, and even driving going to the basket. And he has a lot of offensive upside. Always knew that was a downside. It has been a huge downside, like crazy big downside. He's asked to shoot at times every game because he has to. We have no one else. Jamie Kaiser has been so hot and cold and can't really play him all the time. So it's frustrating. He looks lost. I think it's a confidence thing at this point where the shooting is relaying to everything else and him not wanting to have the ball in his hands as much and then not driving because guys aren't going to have aggressive closeouts, so he can't attack that and get downhill and pass his defender, which is what he does so well. If you think he's going to shoot, you have to step up and then put a hand up, then he's going past you, where he can't really do that right now. Yeah, Jeff's right. I mean, if him going scoreless is a problem. Him and felt like everyone went scoreless. I said Juju before. I meant Dante Scott was the only one that scored double digits also.
Oh, yeah.
But which Dante's a solid player. He's going to give us a decent amount basically every game for the most part. He's frustrating at times also. But yeah, it's another wrinkle in the story for Maryland. Ken said like he's not wearing the sweatshirt, but he likes watching them. I'm wearing the sweatshirt. I don't enjoy watching them. It's the weird part. So I don't know.
I like Maryland. Hey, what about Noah Batchelor? How come he's not getting any minutes then? Like, I feel like I saw him in a few games ago, and I was like, okay, finally he's in. Like, I'm excited to see this guy play. You're going to put somebody out there for 24 minutes that's not going to score. Why not get this guy some minutes?
You might as well. Willard wants to play Jahari Long 44, what feels like 40 minutes a game. I like Jamie Kaiser, so I want him to stay heavily in the rotation, especially at this point where keep the freshmen in, keep the young guys in, make sure we try to give them something to look forward to for next year, try to get them to stay also. I have no answer. I'm not Kevin Willard. I wish I had an answer. He's not, Noah Batchelor is not going to give us consistency that we need, but at the same time, like you're saying, there's no harm in putting him in for 5 minutes, 10 minutes game.
You know, I was going to ask about Jahari Long too, because at the end of the day, like, you can't put a guy in for 30 minutes and only get 2 points. Like, I get there are some guys that, like, you know, scoring is just not their main thing, but like when Jameer Young is out there literally just being Superman, doing everything, it's like at a certain point, somebody has to do something to help out here. Ryan, we got another question from Terps guy. Anytime Juju is out there for an insane amount of time, the game is practically over.
Yeah.
I don't know it's tough with Juju. I like Julian on the defensive end a lot, and he does really good things on offense sometimes. But Ryan, what do you think of Juju out there?
It's right. He's Terps guy. First of all, shout out Terps guy, but he's right because we don't go into the bench with bigs. Like we just don't. So there's nowhere to go where Dante will play the 5 and small ball a little bit, and then we can't defend at all. We can't defend like we need to and switch. And like we play against Matty Sissoko, and they have basically 7-footers, 6'10" guys that they play all the time. So it's like Michigan State does. So that's painful for us. Juju also offensively, I think he's good. I'm pretty sure he's still like top 5 in the country in free throw rate and fouls drawn. And he is one of the worst free throw shooters I have seen in Maryland basketball in the last decade. Like it's really, really bad to a point where I don't understand how it's that bad. And it just, if he could hit free throws, guys would be more careful defending him. And obviously we would score more, be more efficient, of course, but people would defend him so differently and they don't have to. They can just like play so physical with him because he's not going to hit the free throws. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I agree. Jeff makes a good point here too. Reese needs to develop something with his right hand. Yes, that would be helpful to have that. Kent, let's switch over to Michigan State a little bit. You were talking about Michigan State and possibly the tournament and those different kinds of things. That Malik Hall has been better lately, was good in this game, 19 points, 5 of 9 from shooting and 1 of 2 from behind the arc. So he was more efficient in this one as well. It's kind of jumped up there and helped out. AJ Hogard with 8 assists in this one. That was nice. What were your thoughts overall from just Michigan State? I know our guy Steven Izzo didn't get in, so that's depressing. But
yeah, I just don't understand that. I mean, we're going to talk about guys that should be getting minutes right now. It's Steven Izzo. I mean, the fact that he hasn't played in 7 games now is just I can't understand it. I think that Tom might be just delusional at this point, and maybe this has to be his last year, right? If he's not even going to play the best player on his team, just let him sit on the bench. I don't get it, but maybe he'll figure it out once the tournament starts. I do have to say, for Hogart, excellent drawing that technical right before halftime. By the way, Jordan Geronimo was already one of my favorite players, and then he pushed AJ Hogart right before halftime, and now he's just shooting up the list even higher because that was awesome. That was awesome. Shout out to Jordan for that one. But no, they're loaded. I mistakenly picked Michigan State to win the Big Ten before the season started. I thought that they had a legitimate chance to. Thought their roster up and down was the best one going into the season, and obviously I was wrong about that. But if they can start, I guess I feel like they have already started putting it together a little bit. It's just not what we expected going into the year, I guess, at this point. But, they still have Tyson Walker. They still have Malik Hall. They still got guys that can put that ball in the rim. That sounds so stupid. They can put the ball in the rim. We're obviously going to be able to do that. We're playing basketball. Jaden Akins, the guys can fill it up. They have guys they remind me kind of Wisconsin. They're not as good, but they have guys any given night that can be their leading scorer in the same way that Wisconsin does. So that's going to bode well for them in March, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm back and forth on Michigan State. I chose them not to make the tournament early in the year, and then I was kind of like, well, maybe they will, and then they struggled again, and I was like, no, they're not. And now I'm kind of back on. I'm like, well, maybe they will. Maybe I'm going to lose my bet with Tricky. I don't know. Ryan, you do the bracketology and stuff like that. Do you think Michigan State has a chance? I mean, obviously they have a chance, but do you think it's likely Michigan State makes the tournament? What do you think?
Oh, awesome.
Uh-oh, there goes Ryan. He didn't want to answer my question.
Yeah, he didn't want to talk about Michigan State.
Yeah, he was like, oh, we're done talking about Maryland. Get out of here. No, I think Michigan State is so hard to predict because, like I said, they struggled there for a while. And yes, they struggled against good teams. But then, they, one, two, three, four, five of their last six. They're turning it on at the right time. There's Ryan. Did you hear my question before you left, Ryan?
I did not. I had some technical difficulties.
You're good. I was asking, you do the bracketology and stuff like that. Michigan State has looked much better as of late. They kind of were looking not so great there at the start of the year, but 5 of their last 6. Do you think they're going to make the tournament? And if so, what seed line do you think they're kind of going to be around?
Yeah, I think they're going to be one of those teams, like you always see like 1 or 2 power conference teams that has like 13 losses or something like that, 14 losses, and they don't break that 20 win, but their metrics support it. I get it. It makes sense. And everyone's up in arms about why is 19-13 Michigan State in the tournament and 26-4 Drake, who just missed the MVC final, like it didn't get in, and like they're really good also. Like, listen, everybody, it's not how it works. The selection committee has like a whole thing. I kind of agree in some way in like a theoretical sense, I guess, but they're probably going to be in. Their KenPom rating, their net rating are really, really high, even though they shouldn't be. Their strength of record, which I think is probably one of the better metrics to go by, is not high at all because they don't win a lot of games. They have struggled this year. They're going to be in, I think I have them around like 11 pushing 10 or right between there right now, again, based on how the selection committee deems their bracket and their seeds line and stuff. But what's to say they don't continue on a decent path and push up to an 8 or 9 or maybe even a 7 like they did last year, and they were heating up at the right moment. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, Michigan State's here again, and they're going to take down one of the big boys in the second round. So I wouldn't put it past them, even through their struggles, because they were better at this point last year than they are now this year. But if I had a gun to the head, yes or no, they will be in the tournament. Yeah.
If Drake wins 26 games, Ryan, and they don't make the tournament, would you say that's God's plan?
Wow, that was pretty good. It took me a second too. I was like, I'm thinking about Drake Bulldogs. Yeah, I guess it is. Got to leave it in his hands.
That's all I wanted to know.
God just takes over the selection committee and makes it his plan. So, Michigan State, they just play such a tough schedule, and to me, sometimes I think that's overrated because it's like, oh, you played a tough schedule, and it's like, okay, well, like, would they still have won games even if it wasn't like a quad 1 game or something like that? I mean, obviously 7 of their 8 losses are quad 1 losses, so it's not like a bunch of their losses are bad, and you can look at it and say that wasn't good. But at the same time, some of these losses, they didn't look very good. I mean, they lost by 14 at Northwestern, they lost by 15 at Wisconsin. So some of these they're not exactly keeping as close as you would like, and then there's also times too where at home against Wisconsin they only scored 57 points, 70-57 in that one. So to me, it's perplexing. I feel like at the end of the day, if they are kind of on that bubble line, the committee's going to give it to him, right? I mean, it's Tom Izzo. He's got the streak and everything else. The committee's not going to deny that, right, Kent?
Yeah, I will say, though, the streak is over. They were in the play-in game and they lost. So they did not make it that year because they did not play into the tournament. So the streak was already over. But they have a massive game coming up on Tuesday at Minnesota. And that's a game that, sorry, my phone's ringing. I did not think was going to be a massive game going into this year, or maybe even just a few weeks ago. But Minnesota's playing good right now. I know we're about to talk about them and them going on the road to the barn. I'm excited about that little midweek Tuesday night specialty game here. Michigan State at Minnesota. That's something I'm excited about. Is that bad? Should I not be excited about that game? Because I am.
No, I love watching Elijah Hawkins play dish the rock around. And Dawson Garcia is one of the better scorers in the Big Ten. I just don't think he's on a team that gets enough credit for it. So one last thought before we move on to them, because Jeff is putting it out there. KenPom has MSU at 17, offense efficiency at 29, defense at 18. So, yeah, you're exactly right, Ryan. They have the numbers to back it up, and if the selection committee likes the numbers as much as we think they do, he's right. They'll get in. So.
They have a thing called the eye test. If you look at the legal parameters, how they select teams, the last thing says, like, it basically says the eye test. It explains if they deem if they use it for like injuries and stuff too. Like I think Mawat Mag was a reason why they didn't put Rutgers in last year, and like the eye test. Like Tom Izzo's on the sideline, I like use my eyes to see that. So that the eye test, they're good. They legitimately have that in there so that they can do whatever they want and they have whatever reason they want, because there's nothing quantitative at all to that. They're just like, yeah, no, we're good.
So you're saying Florida State's not going to get in then?
Only because of the eye test. They have something against
brutal. Brutal
exactly.
for the Seminoles, man. It's a rough year for them.
Rutgers and Florida State need to like start a group together or something like that.
New conference.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, speaking of Minnesota, let's move on to Minnesota beats Northwestern in this one, 75-66, coming off of Northwestern's overtime game against Purdue, where they looked fantastic in this one. But Minnesota gets it on, not on the road, at home over Boo Buie and the Wildcats. Boo Buie was still really good in this one, just didn't have enough help. And like I said, Minnesota, I think they're just a really, really well-built team. I think Ben Johnson's done a very good job of putting this roster together, and they complement each other very well. They lost Jamison Battle, but it doesn't feel like they really lost much. I'm not trying to be disrespectful there. I'm just saying, like, Ben Johnson's covered it really well and put a nice team together. Kent, what were your thoughts on this game?
Loved it. Little shameless plug here. I had Parker Fox from Minnesota on my podcast earlier this week, and he's the second athlete I've had on my show this year, and both of them, after coming on my show, got a big win right after coming on my show. So, Coleman Hawkins, the invite is still there. So just come on right before a big win. He still has not replied to my DM yet, but we're waiting. Fingers are crossed. I think I'm going to get him. No, but great win for Minnesota. I was really shocked. I woke up that morning, I looked at the line, and Minnesota was favored. And I thought that was weird just to begin with, because Northwestern's been playing so good. And Vegas tends to get these things right. And they were right about this one. Pharrell Payne was unbelievable in this game. He had the 14 points, but really it was the other stuff that he did. He got rebounds in crucial moments. He's just been playing out of his mind lately. He's such an important piece for especially the interior of Minnesota's offense and defense. He's been playing really good. You already mentioned Elijah Hawkins. Massive three right before halftime that I still don't know to this moment if it tied the game or just pulled them within one, because they went and reviewed another three, and then I couldn't tell what was happening. CBS says it was tied at halftime, and it wasn't, according to the broadcast when I was watching it. But then I can't remember who. I was about to pull it up. Minnesota was playing somebody a few weeks back, and the foul up three thing came up, and they ended up almost winning a game because somebody fouled them and then they missed it and almost made a shot at the end. Well, they almost blew this game because they fouled way too early. At the end of regulation, they had 18 seconds left and fouled Northwestern. Just gave them way too much time to make both free throws and still make it a close game. And then Boo Buie had a chance to win it at the end. And same thing I was just talking about with, I can't remember who I was just talking about, Juwan Gary tonight. Boo Buie almost made an and one at the end of regulation and just didn't go down. And then I think Northwestern ran out of gas in overtime. Honestly, they've played how many overtimes this year? They lost back-to-back overtime games just this week. So just a little bit too much on the road. And like I said, super excited for Minnesota, man. This story has been crazy. I don't know anybody that picked Minnesota. I know I'm going long on Minnesota, but I'm getting really excited about them. I don't think anyone picked them to finish above like 10 in the Big Ten, and they're right in the middle of things right now. They are, I know we talked a lot about making the tournament, but they could really make a run here. They're not, I don't think they're in right now, but they're right at 14 wins. They have every opportunity. Got some big games coming up at home. I mean, I'm excited about them. It would be awesome for them to make a nice run at the Big Ten tournament. It's in Minnesota. It's right like 5 minutes away from where they play. I'm just getting really excited about Minnesota. It's been fun to watch them, and it's fun to see a team that wasn't expected to do this well this year. It reminds me of Northwestern in football this year. So that was my thoughts about the game and pretty much Minnesota this season. I know that was a lot, man, but some of these teams, like, I get behind, and I just get super excited about them, and Minnesota's one of them this year.
Now, Jeff's a Minnesota appreciator as well with you. So Payne is a grown man, and he's going to be a player in this conference. I couldn't agree more, man. Between Elijah Hawkins, Pharrell Payne, Dawson Garcia, Cam Christie, even Mike Mitchell.
He hit a massive three in this game. Yeah. Christie did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
They only got 3 bench points. 2 of those from Parker Fox. So
my boy, Parker.
But yeah, he only had 5 minutes and 2 points. So there's that like point to minute ratio that we were talking about.
That's the only thing I didn't like about that game. Like, I was like, where's Parker at, man? He needs more minutes.
My guy Parker.
This is ridiculous.
Ryan, Northwestern has been in overtime 3 of their last 4 games. I mean, it's a lot for the Wildcats. What were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, that's just Northwest. It feels like it's just Northwestern basketball. The last like 3 years, it feels like that. I don't know how many games have gone to overtime. It feels like every game is overtime. Just the way they play and the way that their games are always coming down to the wire. Like every Purdue game they play, obviously when they win half the time. But that's also just like Big Ten basketball. Minnesota, I agree. Minnesota is so much fun. Nebraska is like the fun team in the conference, but Minnesota is like what the fun team should actually be, because Nebraska is good. Like, they've proven they're legit good. They're a tournament team most likely for sure. Minnesota's on the outside looking in. They're trying to be that real sleeper. Like Nebraska, coming into the year, people were kind of like ready for something. They knew Keisei Tominaga. They knew they had a couple of transfers. But Minnesota was like, we have no clue what's going on. Like, we know Pharrell Payne. I remember talking to him a lot in the summer about he could have a big breakout because the role is there. And but Minnesota is like the actual fun team. Not to say Nebraska is not fun, but Minnesota is like the true fun sleeper.
100%.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of people didn't know like Minnesota players coming into the year, right? And that's kind of the fun part of it, is like you're getting to know some of these players and seeing them excel and be better. So I'm curious, Ryan, you said you got Minnesota looking from the outside in. They're 0-3 in quad 1 games. What's the likelihood that Minnesota could make it into the tournament? And what kind of key, I don't know if you know this, but are there any key games coming up that they really, really need to win in order to get in the tournament?
Yeah, like it's less than 50% because they're on the outside right now, and obviously every game is going to be tough. But the biggest thing is, because every game in the Big Ten is not a bad loss per se. Like, obviously you don't want to lose to Minnesota and Penn State and Indiana and whatever when they're not tournament teams, but the more important things are having quad 1 wins, which are also wins against other tourney teams. Like, wins against the field is a very off the paper, I'll call it, argument that the selection committee will use when they're arguing or debating for one team over another. So I look at, they play, obviously Purdue is a big one, but Illinois, when they play Northwestern again, is obviously massive. They can sweep them. The Michigan State game coming up is big, but then they don't really play any other major tournament teams. So like the games against Iowa, who is not a tournament team also, but like could be on the cusp, like they have to win those games too. Those cusp games, and then win one like Michigan State game, and we could be talking about something.
That's awesome.
You got to remember too, Big Ten tournament. Me and I think I'm leading the charge on this now. Me and Goldie will be walking into the Target Center together, hand in hand, leading the charge for the Minnesota fans, and they're going to make a run in this tournament. They're going to make a run in the Big Ten tournament, and it's going to be because of me. I did want to bring this up too. Hoop Informatics, it's an account I just found today. I'll be honest, I don't know how much credibility this has.
You don't know how valid they are?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll give them a giant shout out right now, since I don't know if they're valid or not, but it looked legit. They put out a graph that had every Big Ten team's like percentage chance to make the NCAA tournament. And I think Minnesota was the most shocking one on this chart, because they have them at a 2.6% chance of making the tournament, which I think is just a touch too low for me and my Gophers. I think that's too low. Right? That's got to be way too low, Ryan?
Yeah,
right?
when you have so many power, like big time games, they're not like Iowa and Rutgers aren't like big time games. They're not all quad one, but when you have so many games that are good enough opponents to move the needle for you against the teams that the other bubble teams, I think that's too low. I think maybe it's based on the chance, like, hey, like they got like a dozen games, we'll call it left, like, and every game they could lose realistically. So like they're gonna have to do like almost near perfect to get in because they have so much work to do still. But I think still like 2 is kind of low. I'd put it at like without any math into it, like I don't know, maybe like 10 to 20.
We got those. We got to pump those numbers up, Minnesota. Come on, Minnesota. Those are rookie numbers. We got to get those numbers up. It is interesting though because he did reply to his own tweet, and they are the 7th. Like they're ranked 7th on how many wins they're going to get at 18 wins. So yeah, I guess we are for sure a 6-bid league at this point. If that's the case, if they're 7th and they're not getting in, then the other 6 have to, right?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much thought into this random accounts tweet that I just found today.
No, I was just thinking that we just hit an hour on here, and we still have one more game to talk about.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Next one. No, it's okay. We do have one comment though from my friend Russ here. Did I miss the part? Boiler Russ here. Did I miss the part where everyone complains about the officials in Purdue? No, Russ. We're trying to not do that because I'm sick and tired of logging onto Twitter during Purdue games and just seeing everybody complain about everything, and people take pictures of one like singular moment and they're like, oh, this is proof this happened. And it's like, guys, that's not how like you can't just take a picture and say, oh, this is exactly the entire story of what happened. So
I would like to defend myself really quickly because I was guilty of that, but it was against Northwestern. I took a video of the play. It wasn't Barnheiser, it was the guy that came in for him, where their arms got like twisted up. And the only reason I posted it is because I've never seen a play where like they were like locked arms. And I was legitimately asking people, what should the foul be here? I didn't know if it should be offensive or defensive. And then I got criticized because everyone thought that I was saying that there wasn't a foul on Northwestern, which wasn't the case. I was just curious about the call because it was a weird play. But, you know, whatever, Purdue. I don't like you guys anyways. I'm just kidding.
I
think like we talked about this. Every fan base hates me, so it's like, whatever.
Except Minnesota.
They can't hate me right now. Exactly. They did hate me during football season, though, for sure. For sure.
I was gonna say, Kent, you always have your excuse there. Casual Big Ten. You're like,
that's right. That's exactly right. Casual. I was like, I don't know what happened here. I've never seen a basketball play. Someone tell me.
Russ is joking with you. He said you threw gasoline in an already existing fire and you knew it. Did it for the clicks.
For sure.
LOL after. So
I posted it before anybody else, and then it like everybody else. Like I think Illini enthusiast, his video, which I was actually kind of bitter about for the clicks. Like his video was the one that like Doug Gottlieb got a hold of and everything, and I was like, dude, I was on this too, but he actually did have it like I think 1 minute before me, but I did not see his before I posted it.
Yeah.
But I did 100% did it for the clicks. Yes. Yeah. That's correct.
Understood. All right. Well, let's talk about a game. I don't know how many clicks this game is going to get because IU is just trending downward after losing by 2 touchdowns to Penn State at home. But the Hoosiers did not have Xavier Johnson in this one. I did not think Xavier Johnson was the biggest loss in the world. I thought that as long as they still had their front court, they would be able to make things happen. Penn State did not have Kanye Clary in this one, so I actually thought that was a bigger blow to Penn State. So at home, IU, I thought they were going to get it done, but obviously I was wrong. Penn State went on a run late in the game and really just kind of put Indiana away and never let them come back. Ryan, what were your thoughts on this game?
I actually caught like 10 minutes of it, and then I watched the extended highlights after because I just like there's so many other games on, and I'm just not going to watch that game. Indiana is kind of like Maryland, except the Indiana fans are the exact opposite of Maryland fans. I don't know how much more depth I need to go in for that, but Indiana fans think that Indiana is good this year somehow still, and they're clearly not. Xavier Johnson, like you said, like he's a loss for sure, and like you need that point guard on their team, but they lost by 2 touchdowns. Like it didn't matter. They have no identity. They're very, very, very underwhelming, and they are so painful to watch They play slow. They can't shoot because they know they can't shoot, so they're not going to shoot. It's just those are painful games to watch. So, and I don't think Penn State's awful. They're just kind of in a transition period in the program after losing literally everybody, and they do have some fun players. And Ace Baldwin had a really, really strong game. I love his game. So, good to see the spark for Penn State, but both teams can hopefully look forward to the NIT if they can get there.
Yeah, no, with IU, it's, I look at Malik Renew and I look at Kalel Ware and I'm like, you both are so good, but you have literally no guard play on your team. Don't get me wrong. I like Trey Galloway. I think he can do some nice things from time to time, but like he is not the guard you need on this team to facilitate and get the ball down low. And I'm sorry, but Gabe Cupps, 33 minutes, 2 points, 2 rebounds, no assists. Like, it's YMCA Gabe. Like, all he does
Dude,
is
if
run
he
around.
sees you in public, he's going to fight you.
I know
he's
is,
going
and
to
it's
fight you if
fine.
he sees you in public.
Yeah, and I made IU fans mad when I said Gabe Cupps was supposed to be what Braden Smith was last year. Obviously, that hit a little too close to home, and I get it. But, like, you can't tell me I'm wrong. Like, Gabe Cupps is coming into this year just giving this IU team pretty much nothing. And other than Anthony Leal, I don't know who, IU has to be able to come in. And I don't even think Anthony Leal would be a great choice, but he's the hometown kid that might get the fans excited. So, Kent, what were your thoughts with this one?
Yeah, I didn't watch this game. I didn't watch it at all. Ryan, I'm impressed you watched 10 minutes.
It was in between commercials and whatnot. I swear.
Gotcha.
I swear.
Second screen, something like that. I just couldn't bring myself. Doesn't matter why I didn't watch it. Indiana's dead though. Yeah, like they're completely done now. And for most of the Big Ten, that's a good thing because they'll quiet down on all the apps that people talk about basketball on. But because I didn't watch it, I was confused about how this happened because Ware had 25 and Renew had 16. And usually if you're Indiana and that happens, like you're probably like, hey, we're going to get a win here. But there was a 10-0 run in the second half. Again, just box score watching this. But, Indiana did what Indiana does. They shot 26% from 3-point land, and that's what they do this season. That was just below their season average, and that's what you expect for them. But on the positive side, though, Penn State, they have beaten now Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Rutgers, and Indiana. And like Ryan was saying, when I went into the season not knowing a single player on their roster except for Puff Johnson because his name is hilarious, I did not know if they were going to win any games in this conference. So for them to have 5 wins is impressive. And I think it says a lot about what this team is heading for. Ryan hit this on the head. He said it's a transition year, but it gets me excited about what Coach Rhodes could do for them in the future. I think that the future is bright at Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State has a bright future for sure. And I think Baldwin's gone after this year.
But
I wish he had one more year because I'd love to see
What
him in
about
the Big
Clary?
Ten. I don't know about Clary. Do you know, Ryan?
I like him a lot too.
I actually don't know off the top of my head. That's a good question.
Yeah, he is. He's a sophomore, so
Okay.
he'll be back. Yeah, so that's good for them. One more note on this game. I know we have a lot of comments from a few people, but it's crazy. This is the game we're getting the most comments on. You guys are sickos. I think Ware and Mbako are gone after this year. I think so too. I think Ware's probably going to the draft, and then I don't know if Mbako's going to the draft, but I don't think he's coming back to IU.
He's not. Yeah, Kellogg will get drafted, and McKenzie. I don't know what's going to happen. Plead the fifth.
Yeah, I don't. If I were him, I wouldn't come back.
Yeah, there's no reason. No reason. No reason.
Yeah. But yeah. So one more question, because we do have the Ohio podcast here for you, Ryan. Indiana's painful to watch. If they're painful to watch, how would you describe the Buckeyes, Ryan?
I actually don't know if it's worse to watch if you scratch out the records and the quality of the. Actually, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. I'd rather watch an Ohio State game, I think, in a vacuum. But this is Big Ten. It's the same thing I said with Maryland, Ohio State, Indiana, like Rutgers. Majority of these teams can be painful to watch because then when you flip the channel and you got UNC Duke on and you have like a Pac-12 game that's 90 to 85, like, okay, that sounds a lot better. So that's just the Big Ten in general, and like the mid Big Ten teams, mid and low mid, it's tough sometimes. So.
And they just play that Big Ten brand of basketball that we all like so much. Russ has one more comment here, and then we'll get out of here. Woodson is the guy that doesn't need to come back for Indiana. So my in-laws are actually IU fans and very big IU fans, and I asked them, and sometimes I hesitate to ask these questions because sometimes they get really defensive. But I asked them, I said, "Do you guys want Woodson gone after this year?" And my brother-in-law just kind of put his head down, and he was like, "We cannot fire another coach. Like, I don't want to go through this again." He was like, Tom Crean, Archie Miller. He was like, "I do not want to go through this again. Like, just Woodson, figure it out." Because I can't do this again.
Who they should hire is because I know he's not coaching right now, but I've seen him and he's got a great basketball mind. And he loves Indiana. Is Dan Dockich? That's who they should hire as the coach for Indiana. That'd be a great hire.
Love that.
They should do that because he's got some. I've heard he's coached before.
He has. I've heard some horror stories too.
Yeah.
Blunt about it.
So I don't know if I've heard good things about his coaching before.
Yeah. Not only they're gonna fire. They probably should. Dusty May. Getting Dusty May to leave Boca Raton, Florida, to go to Bloomington is going to be next to impossible. They need to get Josh Schertz as the Indiana State coach. Literally perfect. And when they win a tournament game this year, everyone's going to want him anyway. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is like Dusty May has connections back to Indiana, but like I don't know. Like, is the paycheck really that nice at IU to be, not great? I mean, they get good recruits and they still aren't great, but I don't know.
Hey, what about because I've talked about this guy with a couple of my friends. Is Will Wade going to stay at McNeese State?
I don't know. I heard one weird rumbling about it. Like not even it's like a rumble of a rumor. Like, but I think if they get the tournament, which they probably will, and they win a couple of games, he might bounce after because they have a lot of older guys also. And like, I don't know much about McNeese State and the school and the location, and I can gauge the resource level and the funding and stuff like that. Though, I'd imagine that if any kind of decent major school has an offer, that he would be enticed. So
there you go. The LSU though.
Yes, they got off of. He was there at the tournament basically, and then like had to go home. Yeah.
The Ohio podcast says the Indiana State guy's legit. I want the Buckeyes to snag him. He won everywhere he's gone. Him, either of the Miller brothers, Wes or Sean, I'd be happy with. Or I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Eric Musselman.
The Indiana fans are crazy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ohio State though. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Ohio State.
Okay. In all seriousness, I know I was joking about
shirt, but
I was joking about Dan Dockich, but Ohio State, you guys should look into because I think he's going to be available after this year. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Juwan Howard. Maybe look into him.
Yeah, I don't know. He might be back. He's coming in late this year, so might have a good winning season at the end of the year. So. All right. Well, we've already gone longer than I said we would, so better get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Appreciate you. Ryan, why don't you tell people where they can find you out on social media and stuff?
Ryan Hammer 9, or maybe it's Ryan Hammer 09 on like Twitter, but I think if people search my name, they'll find it pretty easily. So
yeah. And it's a little waving guy I got down there for him. So
yeah,
I didn't know who Ryan's team was, and then he showed up with the Terp study, and I was like, oh, I guess I should have put the Terps down there, but
that's okay. We don't want that.
Yeah, we don't need that. And then Kent, Casual Big Ten, Twitter, any other places you want people to find you at?
Tony Perkins Superfan.com is my new website that I just launched. So you guys can come get it.
Your podcast.
Sorry,
your podcast.
I didn't mention Tony Perkins' name this episode, so I had to squeeze it in right here at the end. Sorry.
Kent, that wasn't very casual. Well done. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate you. Thank you, Ryan, so much for coming on. Appreciate you. Have a good night, everybody. See ya.